All right, hello, this is Kyle from McGraw-Hill, and today I'm going to be walking through Simnet, and then I'm going to show you how we can pair up Simnet with Blackboard. So let's start out by just logging in. So you'll notice that I've got my own portal here, and that's because each school gets their own unique URL. So it keeps everything separated and makes it nice and easy. So just sign in. And when I sign in, it's going to take me to the My Account area. So this is the instructor side. Some things that I want to point out are you're going to have your welcome message up here. If at any time you want to go into the student side, which we'll be doing plenty of, you'll click Sim Student, and this is going to let you see exactly what a student would see. Okay, and we'll go back into that later. All right, then we've got our help menu, and this is important because it's completely personalized. So right now I'm on the main page, so it's got some general overview help questions. But if I were to click, for example, on Gradebook, and then I click help, it's going to be a bunch of help questions as relates to the gradebook. So it's a really nice tool, and it kind of adapts so it's whatever you need it to be while you're in Simnet. All right, and then you've got the blog, which is where the instructors can kind of get together and share their thoughts and best practices. Okay, so then we're going to toggle over. We've got the class listing. So I've created this demo for LIM, and that's what we're going to look through now. And you've got your assignment schedule. So the assignments that I've created are either going to be in the past, in the current, all right, or upcoming. And from this tab, you can actually click on any of these assignments. You can get a quick report of how your students are doing. You can delete this from the schedule. You can view a snapshot. So this allows you to go in and actually look at the individual problems that are in this Chapter 1 Getting Started with Access. And then you've got Edit Schedule, which allows you to go in and change due dates and that sort of thing. All right. So I am going to then just work down the list and kind of show you the usability of the instructor side. So under the users heading, you've got My Account. By default, you're taken to the dashboard. You can get your account details. All right, so it gives all of your information. Your permissions. So this is going to tell you that I've got full instructor permissions. If you're the administrator for the account, then you'll have a lot more than full instructor permissions. Then you go down with messaging. This is just going to be anything in your Simnet inbox. Since you use Blackboard, you probably won't use this too often. Students. This is where you could actually go to look at all the students, and you can see that I've got a bunch of students entered in here. Just like the rest of the program, it's easily searchable. So if I put KB, I know that's the name of one of my students, and click enter, it will sort through everything and find every instance of KB. Okay? So that's a general usability feature that is kind of similar for a lot of the later functionality that we'll see. All right. So you can actually create your own students. So if you want to take upon yourself the task of pre-registering your students, you can do that. Okay. Classes. Okay, so by default it's set to show my classes. So if an instructor is teaching multiple classes, they'll be able to toggle through those here. But you can also click Show All Classes, and this will show all the classes that are available at your institution. Okay? I'm going to stay with my class, and you'll have a list of drop-down actions that you can do here. So snapshot gives you an overview of the class. Print a snapshot. Edit or assign. Copy to class allows you to copy these settings to another class. Gradebook. Import new students. Import existing students. Export roster. Export assignments. Send messages and delete. So there's just a lot of functionality that you've got from within the classes area. Okay, so let's go down to the content area. Okay, so Michelle and I talked, and I thought that maybe that you were going to be up for SimBooks, but it sounds like after speaking with you that you'd probably be more apt to use lessons. So here's the thing. Lessons and SimBooks are the same content. But if you use a SimBook, it's just going to be a chapter by chapter piece, so you're getting all of the chapter. You're not allowed to turn portions off. It's all or nothing. Okay, and it's cohesive. If you use lessons, it's just going to be the skill and drill, so none of the fluff, but it's going to be the same activities. And this allows you to really go in and get specific. So if I click lessons, okay, then it's just going to allow me to create. All right, so I click create under lessons, and then I've got to select my content base. Do I want to do Access 2007, 2010, and those listed topics, or do I want to do 2013? And for the sake of this demo, I'm going to go with 2013. So I say that I want to do a lesson, and then I type in the title of the lesson. So let's say this is, let's call it Unit 1 Access. All right, I click next, and now it's going to ask me what I'd like to do. Do I want to take from a textbook? Do I want to take from a module? So let's say that I want to draw these lessons from a certain textbook. All right, so I'm going to go to the drop down, and I believe O'Leary was one of the texts that you had mentioned. So let's say that we want to do Access 2013 Introductory from O'Leary. Now every activity that's specific to O'Leary is going to be populated down here, and I can just add bits and pieces by selecting and then clicking add. If I decide later on, you know what, I don't need that, I can remove it. One other good feature here is that I can select multiple topics. So if I click on one and then I hold down Control and click on others, I can select a bunch of activities to add to the lesson. It's the same thing, I just click add and they'll go over. One other feature that I want to point out is if you're looking for a task by name, let's do table, and then I click enter. It's going to filter out everything that doesn't have table in the title. So this is a quick way for you to find exactly what you need in the O'Leary Access category. If you want a quick snapshot of what's in this, you can just hover over. Okay, if you hover over this dialog box, it'll kind of give you some snapshot info. So the MCAS objective, and those are going to be finalized by January, I believe. But since it's the product team that's telling us that, we want to always err on the side of caution and plan for February. But you'll be able to map activities to the MCAS objectives, and you can always preview the task by going over to preview, and this is going to take you to the show me, guide me, and let me try, so you can see exactly what your students would see. Alright, so let's say I like these 5 topics. We'll add them. Alright, so now I go up here, I've added my tasks, and I just need to push these to a class. And since this is my only class, I select it and click add. Alright, so when I'm adding this lesson to my class, it's going to ask me to create a date, a due date, start date and due date. So by default it's going to be today's date. You can edit that, of course. And let's make these due by next Friday at 11:59 p.m. Then I also get to set up my nuances for the assignment. So do I want to display the hints? I'm going to leave this at always. Do I want to require completion of show me, guide me, and let me try, or just let me try? So show me and guide me, we'll get into that in a minute, but those are very tutorial in nature. Let me try is what actually kind of assesses the student. So a lot of times my instructors will just say, you know what, it's our general policy to just have it defaulted to let me try. We'll click save. Alright, and we are good to go. So now when I come up to my account and it takes me to the overview area, we should have that Unit 1 access lesson. Okay, see, so now that's available here. So theoretically, we would do this in the master course, and then you just copy the template out to all of your instructors. So this is something that would be, it'd take a little work to make sure that everything maps to your objectives for the first incarnation of the course, and then after that, you can just copy it to all of your instructors. So it's a very easy process. Okay, so working down the list, we've got exams, and I'll create a quick exam just so you can see the difference between a normal assignment, so like a sim book and a lesson, versus an exam. Alright, so let's create one of these. It's going to be a very similar process. Alright, so we call it exam 1, we click next. Oops, there we go. Oh, it doesn't like that I named it something that I've already named this before, so let's call this exam 11.2. There we go. All right, and it's going to be very similar to what we've seen with building the lesson. So we'll go in, I can select modules if I'd like to that are not specific to any textbook, or if I'm really mapping this closely to that O'Leary textbook, then I can select from the O'Leary book, and we'll say this is for access. All right, and I'm going to go in, and since this is my exam over the same topics for Unit 1, for example, I could just type in table once again, and we've got an easy question, we'll get a medium question or two, and then we'll get a really hard one. Add that to our exam. Then I set my exam preferences, okay? So it allows me to go in and set all my unique preferences. By default, this is going to be time limit of 30 minutes, but if I want to edit any of these, I can go right in and edit those settings. Then next up, class assignments. And we add the demo course, and it's going to ask us for the due date. We'll say it's due next Saturday, but it ends next Sunday, and ends means it goes away. The student won't have access to this one anymore except for visiting it in the gradebook. All right, so we've saved that. Now we've got an exam, and the one other thing I guess we'll touch on here, I'll create a sim path so you can see the difference between a lesson and a sim path. And let me just go ahead and do this. Kyle sim path access. Let's do, yeah. Okay, so it's a sim path, and then we're going to go next. Same thing as before, I'll just click into the O'Leary access, and we'll make this about tables as well. All right, we'll just take first 4 pieces here and we add. So now it's time to set up the preferences for the sim path. We say if we want the pretest to be practice or required, the lesson properties, and then the post-test. So basically, a sim path is going to be a pretest, which is essentially lets the student attempt to show mastery on a certain topic. If they get mastery, then they go straight to the post-test. If they don't prove mastery, then they go into a lesson that kind of remediates the student, walks them through the area that they showed weakness, and then at the end they show mastery through the post-test. So then we have to go through each tab and set up our pretest options, our post-test options, and then assign it to a class. All right, and you're going to have to set a pretest end date. So let's say that's due by the 12th. Lesson end date, that's due by the 14th. And post-test end date, we'll make that due by the 14th. And then if we have an end date for the assignment, so we'll make this end on the 20th. All right, and then you get to set up all the same preferences that you set up with the lesson. We'll save that. All right. Projects. So this is basically going to be a start file. If we click on projects, it's going to allow us to build projects. The 2013 project files are going to be done in January 2014. They are going to require, they're the one component of SimNet that require that your students actually have the Office 2013 suite on their computers. So they would basically, your students would go in, they click on project, it would note that they clicked to open it, they download a start file, they actually work within the actual, Access or Excel program, and then they upload the final file into SimNet for you to grade. One thing that's really nice about the grading of this piece is that they automatically grade, and it's got a kind of a cheat-proof piece that can tell if a student copied a start file from another student. So it kind of throws a red exclamation point next to the student in the gradebook column if there's a plagiarism warning. So you get a lot of data, but that is only for if you're requiring your students to have access to the full Office suite on their computers. Okay, and then resources, if you've got additional resources that you'd like to include, you can put them here. All right, so let's go back up. Well, actually, the gradebook we'll touch on when we do the Blackboard piece. So now, if you look at current, I've got a whole lot of assignments here. I had a bunch of SimBook pieces that I was going to show you, which I still can from the student side, but now I've added a bunch of different assignment types. So let's click on Sim Student, and we'll actually take a look at this from the student side. So when the student comes in here, by default, This is going to be in the tile format, which lends itself nicely to iPads and various other tablet devices. If a student doesn't like this view for some reason, then they can click calendar, and this will actually show when the assignment starts and when it's due. So I put a really long duration on all the sim books, so that's why they stretch throughout this entire month of the calendar. Typically you're going to have shorter assignments like Unit 1 Access, Exam 11.2, so on and so forth. So they're going to be just visual representations of when the students are going to need to do their work. Another thing that we've got is subscribe to calendar. This will be active. Oh, it looks like it's actually active now. I thought that it wasn't going to be fully active until January, but it looks like they jumped the gun. You can actually sync this with Outlook. You can sync it with Google Calendar or with your iCal, your OS X calendar. And this will let the student know exactly when their assignments are due, and if they're on their phone or whatever, their smart device or their Outlook, it'll give them a little ding and tell them, hey, you've got an assignment due in Simnet, why don't you go do it now? So that's a cool feature. And then the final option that we've got for student viewing is the old-fashioned view, the list, okay? And for some reason right now, I think because I'm recording this, every now and then this happens when I record, the menu is blue. It's typically a white background, so it's usually a lot easier to read all of this material. But I'm going to go to the tiles. One thing to note is that it's completely searchable. So if I type in SimPath, it removes everything right away that doesn't have Sim. If I type in Chapter 2, it's going to take me right to Chapter 2. Tables, I've been harping on tables, so this is the assignment that has tables in the title. So it's really searchable. The other way that the students can filter in everything is they can look at what's due soon. So these are the most nearly due assignments. I'm going to go back to all. By default, show all is chosen. Okay. If I want to just see the lessons or just see the sim books or just see the exams, projects, there are no projects, or the sim paths, we can filter by those means. But I'm going to click show all, and I'll just walk you through the different functionalities. Okay, so first I'm going to open up the sim book just to show you how this functions. I doubt that this will be what you use, but I think that it's a good idea to at least see how this looks and feels. A student can jump straight into a certain section, or they can just click open the book. So the first thing that you'll notice when it opens is that I can scroll down. All right, and then if I'm ready to page over to the next section, I just click this right arrow. This piece is completely enabled for tablets, so you can just swipe and it will move to the right side. All right, so this is 1.1, and I would read about this, and if I'd like to keep reading, I can just toggle over to the next piece. But now it's time for me to, let's say I've read this, okay, I've got my 1.2 working with security warnings, and now I am ready for the show me, guide me, let me try. So let's click on show me.
When you open a database for the first time, Access may display a security warning in the message bar at the top of the window, below the ribbon. If you trust the source of the database, click the Enable Content button in the message bar.
Okay, so for the sake of time, I'm going to close that out, but it's just a guided video that's going to walk you through the tasks that you're going to be asked to perform and let me try. So we click Guide Me, and this is actually going to ask me to go through a set of instructions and perform them, but it's very regimented. So let's say it says click Enable Content button. I click that, tells me I'm correct, and I can move on. And it says that I've completed this exercise. But if I go back in, I'm going to open this up again, and it says click the Enable Content button. If I click in the wrong area, it's going to tell me that I was wrong and let me know that I should have clicked over here. So just keep in mind that it allows the student to make an error, but it's always going to really guide them towards the right answer. Okay, so we'll close that out. And now it's let me try. This is when your students are going to be asked to perform the task. They can actually kind of click around in the wrong areas, and it's not going to guide them towards the right answer in this one. I also want to point out that this is the one piece of the SimBook experience that is not enabled for Flash. So we still want the students to perform the tasks that they're going to ultimately be quizzed and tested on from some kind of output device. And as far as iPads go, I mean, it's really for a computer class not a great output device yet. Sometime over the next year, we're going to be pushing everything to HTML5, but right now the company's stance is still that we're going to keep bits and pieces away from HTML5 because we want the students to be in front of an actual, laptop or computer device before they perform certain tasks. So let's click Let Me Try. All right, and it says this document came from a trusted source. Disable the protected view. So I'm going to come in and perform the task. All right. It says that I did a good job. It gives you my check off. And now I can move on to the next portion of the chapter. Some other features. There's a limited print function here where it'll allow you to print limited ranges. Okay. You've also got, let me close this out. You've also got the bookmark capability. If you want to see the table of contents for this chapter of the sim book and just go into a certain portion of the text, you can always bounce around with the little drop down piece here. You can resize the font by clicking the plus or the minus. Okay. And when you close out, this is something that I always think you should go through with your students on the first day if you're going to use a sim book. You'll always want to tell them to click the little X to close out, because if they click the X up here, it's going to close the page. So you click this little X, and it's going to ask you if you want to exit, and then it takes you out to that main landing page. Okay, so that was the sim book. Let's go into a lesson. So it looks and feels very similar to what you saw in the sim book, except this is just the content that you've created for this specific lesson. All right, so we'll open into the lesson, and it's got a lot of the same navigational pieces. So this has the O'Leary content around the topic for this particular task, and it's going to be the same thing. Show me, guide me, let me try. You'll have all the same functionality over here. You can bookmark, you can print, you can resize, and you can close out by clicking the X. So everything's going to be the exact same, except that you just have a lot more flexibility to edit what exactly is included. Okay, so we'll back out. Now I'm going to show you a SimPath Access exercise. So this is the one that has the pretest to establish what you know and what you don't know. Then step 2 is going to be the personalized lesson. Step 3 is the post-test. So let's click through this. All right, and since this is completely web-based, it's always going to front load so that the student doesn't have to have any files on their computer, nor does the school. So we click Start. And this is going to be more of an exam style setting because we really want to establish what the students know and don't know. So it gives me my marching orders. Add a new table in design view. So I will click down here, up here. All right, so it tells me that I'm incorrect, and it moves me on to the next piece. Add the services table in the relationships window. Okay. And I have no clue. But it looks like I did that correctly. Yay for me. All right, so moving on. And then I'm going to intentionally screw these up. All right. And then it takes me to the final tab, and I will go to this, and it says that I'm wrong. Okay. So I end the exam. It notes the one that I got correct and the 3 that I got wrong. And I can go back to assignment details now. And I open up my lesson. And this is going to touch on the 3 areas that I didn't show proficiency in. Okay? So after I complete this, I would then just go in to take the post-test. And this is where I should show a nice improvement because I have a lesson that's customized to me. So really it's up to you as an institution to decide, do I want the entire sim book available? Do I want to just have custom lessons that we create that are really specific to my students? Or do I want to also create sim paths? It's really just your choice, and if you want to talk about that later, I can give you the pros and cons of each. All right, final thing that I want to show you is exam, just so you can see the different, the different assignment types within here. So we've got this exam. It's just like the SimPath in that it's going to front load. It's going to tell the students you've got one attempt, and this one's timed, so the time is ticking up here. So I've got 4 questions, and it's going to be very similar to what you saw in that pre-test. Okay. Okay. So I'm going to exit out. It's going to warn me. And I didn't do too hot on this exam. So I've exited out of this piece because that's really about the extent of what I wanted to show you in Simnet. Oh, actually, hold on. Take that back. I want to show you one other function that I think is really great for instructors. So let's say I go into my students and I find the students just for this class. I know that I've got KB student. I can actually go into this student. I click edit, and there's a really unique feature for students with learning disabilities. You'll see here that the ADA multiplier is set to 1. If I click edit and set this to 1.5 for example and save it, by default it's going to give this student 1.5 times the length of time that it gives every other student to work on an assignment. So if I have an exam, for example, that's an hour long, if this student goes in after I've adjusted the ADA multiplier to be 1.5, it's going to give the student an hour and a half. So that's a really great feature, I think, for adjusting for students that have learning disabilities. Okay, now I'm done with Simnet. What we're going to do now is I'm going to walk you through how to set up Simnet to work with your Blackboard sections. So I'm going to log into my Blackboard instance, and for this demo I have created a course called Simnet LIM demo course. So I'll open this up. Alright, and I can either, actually I'll show you how to create the tool. Your LMS administrator, your Blackboard administrator, would just create a tool link. So let's call this MH Campus, which is the name of the middleware, /Simnet. Alright, and MH Campus is just a building block that we have your Blackboard team work with our technical team to install. You could then place this in the master course, and then when you make your section copies, it would be available to all your students. Okay, so the students would just, or the instructors rather, would come in, and at the beginning of their course, they just need to click the button for MH Campus or Simnet or whatever you want to call it. Then it takes you to this Simnet or this MH Campus landing page. You click on it. It will then bring up all of your courses that you're teaching in Blackboard, but it opens up to the course at hand. The first time that you come in, you're going to have to search for Simnet to say that that's the resource that you'd like to use with this course. And after you select it, it'll populate here. You can search by ISBN, title, or author. We'll help you through that process so that you have a best practice. Then you'll just click this Simnet SimGrader button. It's going to bring you to this page that says, do you want to adopt this? You click, I want this for my students. Adopt Simnet, and then it's going to ask you to put in a unique URL. So this would be whenever we establish that for your team, you'll have your own URL that will auto-populate. I then click Next. Alright, so it actually knows me from my previous logins, and then I would just click that I want to link this with either one of my classes or show all classes, and I'm going to search for the LIM course. Okay, so I click Next, and it says that I am now paired. I can either continue to Simnet or else I can return to McGraw-Hill campus, and I'm actually going to return just so I can show you the click path from going forward. So the instructor would come to the home page. They would just click on the Simnet link and then campus button. Alright, so then it loads, and the instructor would then just click on the Simnet button and it'll take you right into your section. Alright. The only difference between going externally to Simnet and logging in through Blackboard is you'll have this button that says Return to LMS. So this is how the single sign-on is established. The other nice thing is, if I click on Gradebook, you don't have to export anymore. You can do a one-way grade push that will allow the grades to flow from your Simnet gradebook to the Blackboard gradebook. So I'm going to click on the course that I'd like to look at. Alright, and I've got a couple grades here, and you'll see that in the upper right hand corner here I've got the option to grade sync. So I click this button. I'm going to say that I want to turn it on, and then I'm going to select which assignments I'd like to send over. I can select them all, and then I just click Save. And now you see that I've got the progress bar. So at the end of this, it says whether or not my sync was successful. So if it's green, that means the sync was successful. If it's yellow, that means it's still pending. If it's red, that means it failed for some reason and you need to try again. But when I do this sync, it's going to push out to the Blackboard gradebook and write a new column, transfer the score. So in the Grade Center, click Full Grade Center. And now all of my new columns are written. Okay. Alright, so that's going to be how GradeSync works. Obviously, I've just got a fake student in here and I haven't actually paired the course through Blackboard, but once you do that, it actually writes the scores over into the student's column, and it's going to be just a simple push from the instructors. Okay, so I know that was a lot to take in. 35 minutes. I tried to cram as much as I could in there. So please let me know if you have any questions. Be happy to schedule up a follow-up, and look forward to hearing back from you. Have a great weekend.